In April, we are going to be working on the basket block. You could have the basket handles the same fabric as the basket base and feet, or you could have a different fabric. You just have to decide what you like best. When cutting out these pieces, be aware if you have directional fabric. These pieces will all be used as triangles. Wait and cut out your basket feet pieces later, because we can use some leftover pieces from the triangle that we've already cut. We're going to start with our 3-inch squares. Draw a line corner to corner on the light piece on the wrong side. Put right sides together. We're going to sew 1/4 inch from each side of your drawn line. Cut them apart and you have 2 half-square triangles. Cut off the little tails and you're ready to sew them together. We're now going to sew together our half-square triangle pieces. Please refer to the instructions and the picture. These rows go in 2 different directions. We are then going to sew the 2 5/8 inch square onto the end of the second row. Now that they're all sewn together, press them and then you're ready for the next step. Your next step is to take your 2 7 1/4 inch squares. It will be the inside of your basket and your basket piece. You draw a line corner to corner on the light colored piece, and then you sew only on one side. You don't sew on both sides like we did with the other half-square triangles. We're only going to sew on one side, 1/4 inch away from the line. You have sewn 1/4 inch from the drawn line on one side only. Now cut on the drawn line. This will be your basket piece and the inside basket triangle. We take the piece that we just finished and sew onto it the number 2 handle piece. We're now going to sew on the other basket handle piece, the one that has the square sewn on top of it. You want the last seam sewn in such a way that the 2 top triangles line up nicely. I've placed a pencil there. You want that to go on a horizontal line. If you have one of your half-square triangles higher than the other, it will be very noticeable in that location. So you may have to adjust that seam a little bit when you're sewing it. We are next going to take our 7-inch square background pieces and cut them in half diagonally. We will sew one of your triangle pieces to each side of the top of the basket piece. Put the triangle piece on the bottom so it will feed through on the feed dog side. You now have your 2 triangles sewn in place, and you want to make sure you have 1/4 inch above the square, so when you sew the quilt together you won't cut off your points. So I have plenty of room there. Then we're going to take the extra piece that we used and use that for the 3 1/4 inch basket feet. We've taken our 3 1/4 inch basket foot piece, cut it in half diagonally. We lay it out according to the picture, but you cannot just draw a line and line up the piece with that line. You have to measure 2 3/4 inches. Draw a line, then take your foot piece, right sides together, and sew 1/4 inch. Before you trim off your excess background piece, flip over your basket foot piece. Make sure you did it correctly. If you did, you can cut off the excess, press it, and you're ready to go. The next step is to measure up 2 5/8 of an inch, make a mark, and that mark is where you're going to line up your seam. Your seam needs to be lined up with your 2 5/8 inch mark, and then you're ready to sew. You next want to square your block to 12.5 inches, and it's very helpful if you have a 12.5 inch ruler. Just make sure you have 1/4 inch away from all of your points, so when you sew the quilt together you don't cut off those points. You will make one basket block for your surprise mystery quilt.